Now during these 22 years of the revelation of Quran, for about 12 years Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam stayed at Makkah. So the amount of Quran that was revealed during this period is called the Makki Quran, the surahs, Makki surahs, and it is round about 2/3 of the whole of the Quran. Then he migrated in the year 624, 622 to Medina Munawwara, and from thence till his death in 632, that is 10 years he stayed at Medina. But during these 10 years he was making journeys for battles also. For Battle of Badr. Then he had to go even to Tabuk, that is near the border of Syria. He had to go to different parts of the Arabian desert. So actually during this whole period of 10 years, the surahs and ayat of Quran which were revealed to him, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, they are called the Madani surahs. Although all of them were not revealed at Medina properly. Some of them were revealed in different places where he was on journey. But all that part of the Quran which was revealed during 10 years after Hijrah until his death, this is called the Madani surahs or the Madani Quran. Now this division between Madani and Makki surahs of Quran is nearly agreed upon. About most of the surahs it is agreed upon whether it is Makki or Madani. But there are slight differences of opinion about a few surahs and then about a certain ayat also. There are examples that some ayat were revealed at Makkah, but they are included in the Madani surahs. Or some ayat were revealed at Medina, but they are included in the Makki surahs. But as I told you, by and large, it is agreed upon between all the Muslims and scholars that this is the Makki surah and this is the Madani surah. An example of an important exception is Suratul Hajj. According to some people, it is Makki. According to others, it is Madani. And as far as I have been able to understand, part of it is Madani, part of it is Makki. And some ayat, I found it later on, that it was the opinion of Hazrat Abdullah ibn Abbas radiyallahu ta'ala anhuma, that some ayat were revealed during the journey that Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam undertook during his hijrah, when he was going from Makkah to Medina. During this period, those ayat were revealed. So this surah, so to say we can call, it is somewhere between Madani and Makki, Suratul Hajj. About the rest of the surahs, as I have told you, clearly there is consensus, there is agreement of opinion about whether they are Makkis or Madanis. Now fifth point is, who were the addressees of the Quran? Whom Quran addressed? I want to divide this into two parts. The first and foremost addressees of the Quran, they were the pagan Arabs, who were the progeny of Ibrahim and Ismail alayhi salatu wasalam. And Quran gives them the title of Ummiyin, because they didn't have any book. There was no prophets sent to this progeny of Ibrahim after Ismail alayhi salatu wasalam. So these people, they were unlettered one. They had no education, they had no book, no law, no tradition. So they were called Ummiyin. Huwa alladhi ba'asa fil ummiyina rasulam minhum yatlu alayhim ayatihi wa yuzakkihim wa yuallimuhumul kitaba wal hikmah. But secondly, the addressees of the Quran were the Jews and the Christians. So to say, they were the former Muslim Ummah. They were the Ummah of Hazrat Musa alayhi salatu wasalam. They were people of the book. All of them believed in Torah. And the Jews, although they didn't believe in Injil, but they did believe in Torah, in the Old Testament, and all the scriptures of the prophets. So actually they are called Ahlul Kitab, people of the book, and they have been addressed to in the Quran directly, and they were also the direct addressees of the Quran, because many Jews were there in the Arabian Peninsula, and then Christians were also present in the Arabian Peninsula. To these people, Quran addresses primarily. But secondarily, whole of humanity is the addressee of the Quran. All the people, all human beings who were present in this world at the time of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, Quran addressed them also, Ya Yuhannas, O people at large, Ya Bani Adam, O progeny of Adam. So actually the whole of humanity was being addressed. And not only those people who were present at the time of the advent of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, but also all human beings who had to come to this world till the end of this world, till the doomsday. But they are being addressed, and they are the addressees. We may say they are by proxy. To them this message has to be given and communicated by the Ummah of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. But the direct, approach of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he addressed directly himself the pagan Arabs of the Arabian Peninsula and the Jews and the Christians of his time. The rest of the humanity, actually this vision was entrusted to the Ummah of the Muslim, of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, that now it's your duty to preach and convey and communicate this message of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to each and every human being till the end of this world. Therefore, the most important point which I want to make is that when we ponder over Quran and we try to understand it, we should have two levels of understanding of each and every ayah. First of all, we have to keep the ayat or the surahs in the context, the historical context, when they were revealed, to whom they were revealed, who were the first addressees of the Quran, to whom Quran was talking primarily, what were their ideas, what were their beliefs, what were their customs, what were their rituals. Everything has to be in the context, geo-historical context. That we call, in the term of the exegesis of the Quran, ta'wilul khas, with the special, perspective of the time when they were revealed, people who were being directly addressed. If we place the ayah or the surah in that context, and then we try to understand what was the meaning of this ayah or surah, which the people understood at that time, at that particular moment in history. And secondly, because this Quran is meant for the whole of humanity, for all times to come. It was not sent only for the Arabs. It was not sent only for the Christians or the Jews of the times of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, but the whole humanity. So actually we have to understand the Quran secondarily in a generalized way. That is called the Ta'wilul Aam. Look to the words, what they mean, and just don't keep them bound with the background, historical background. Take it away from that background. And as such, you think over them, ponder over them, dive deep into their meanings, and try to generally infer from it the total and the final and the eternal guidance that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has provided for the humanity at large. Now lastly, the sequence of Quranic surahs in the Mus'haf that we read and recite, and the sequence in which it was revealed, these two are absolutely different. The sequence of revelation and the sequence of the Mus'haf, the book that we have, these two sequences are absolutely different. And as we know, the Makki surahs, basic principle is that they were revealed at Makkah. They were revealed earlier than the Madani surahs. But we find in the Quran, in Mus'haf, that the four Madani surahs, they are in the very beginning of the Mus'haf. Suratul Baqarah, Suratul Al Imran, Suratul Nisa, Suratul Ma'idah. Four longest Madani surahs are in the beginning of the Quran, although we know they were revealed after 12 years from the beginning of the Wahi. So the sequence of Mus'haf and sequence of revelation, they are different. Now, a few words about the basic terminology about Quran. The unit of Quran is called ayah. We don't call it a sentence. We don't call it a verse. Some of the writers use this word for Quran, but as far as I think, we shouldn't use it. Neither the word sentence nor verse, we have to keep this word ayah. It's very unique. Ayah means a sign or a symbol. Actually, every ayah of Quran is a sign or symbol of the wisdom of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So we cannot substitute any other word in its place. We have to keep it, and because during this translation of the Quran, I'll be keeping this terminology. That is why I'm explaining in the very beginning. Ayat, ayat. But if ayat, if there is full stop after that, we call it ayah. So these are fundamental things, Ayah and ayat is the same. And the plural is ayat. Now ayat, they are very small also, very large also. We have, haruf muqatta'at. They also go to make ayah. Hamim, it is ayah. Alif lam mim, it is ayah. Then wal asr, it is ayah. Innal insana lafi khusr, it is again an ayah. And then there are ayat in which you can have 10 sentences. Ayatul Kursi, for example, a very big ayah, one of the biggest ayats of the Quran. So actually, these ayat, they are not based on any grammatical or any other logical, only principle of logic or grammar. This is based on as Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam told us. And we call it, in this terminology, tawqifi. These matters are tawqifi. They are mawquf alayh, on the telling of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. As he told, we accept it. No reason, no principle, no logic, no grammar. Now these ayat, you may note here, there are about 6,666. There is some difference in number. But round about 6,500 ayat of the Quran, whole. Now these ayat, second term is surah, and the plural is suwar. But this word is because it's not commonly used. I'll be using the word surah and surahs during this translation, when translating into English. And what is surah? Surah is not a chapter. Please note, these terms are not applicable to the Quran. These terms which we use about the books generally, sentences, paragraphs, there are no paragraphs in the Quran. Then there are no chapters. This is not chapter. Because for every chapter of a book, there must be a certain topic, and that topic should be discussed in that chapter alone. It shouldn't be repeated in the second chapter or again in the third chapter. But we find in the Quran that even the story of Adam and Iblis, it has been repeated in 7 surahs of the Quran. So actually it's a unique book. It's not the common book as we know the word book, human books. This is a unique book in itself, and it has its own compilation, its own style, its own terminology. So ayat, then the ayat are joined together in surahs. There are 114 surahs of the Quran. And these surahs, are very small also. 3 surahs are there who have only 3 ayat each. Walas, innal insana lafi khusr, illa alladhina amanu wa amilu salihati wa tawasaw bil haqqi wa tawasaw bis sabr. Surah is complete. In the same way, inna a'tainaka al-kawthar, fasalli li rabbika wanhar, inna shaniyaka huwa al-abtar. Surah is complete. And on the other hand, we find Surah Al-Baqarah, 286 ayat. And among these 286 ayat, there are certain ayat which are so long that Ayatul Kursi is at least 3 times bigger than Surah Al-Asr. So actually these sizes are also dependent upon what the Prophet ﷺ told us. These are tawqifi umur, not based on any logic, not based on any principle. The only principle is that the Prophet told us this is Surah Al-Baqarah. Starts from here and here. This is Surah Al-Imran. Starts from here and here. It is small or large, big or small. It has nothing to do with any number, any size, any principle of grammar. But as far as the contents are concerned, there are principles. Every surah has a central theme. And all the ayat of that surah, they are connected with that central theme logically. They are absolutely logical relationship. But not as we find in our chapters. It's complete in itself, self-sufficient in itself. Then one point please note, and that is, most of the surahs of the Quran are in pairs. Surah Al-Baqarah, Surah Al Imran, a pair. In the same way, the Mus'haf ends with Mu'awwadhatayn. Qul a'udhu bi Rabbil Falaq, Qul a'udhu bi Rabbin Nas. Very similar to each other. That's a pair. In the same way, وَالضُّحَى وَاللَّيْلِ إِذَا سَجَى أَلَمْ نَشْرَحْ لَكَ صَدْرَكَ. The same thing being discussed in both the surahs. Addressing Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam personally. It's a pair. Very apparently a pair. In the same way, Ya ayyuhal muzammil, Ya ayyuhal muddassir, Ya ayyuhal muzammil, qum al-layla illa qalila, Ya ayyuhal muddassir, qum fa'anzir. It is again a pair. So most of the surahs of the Quran are in pairs. Although there are surahs which are not in pairs. They are unique. They are munfarid. And most of such surahs are very important. But actually we shall be referring to these things during our translation. That is why I want to acquaint you with these basic terminology. Now these surahs, the big surahs have been divided into rukus. This division was not present at the time of the Prophet or during the days of the Sahaba. It was done later on during the Umayyad period and by a person which is not liked by many, and that is Hajjaj ibn Yusuf. He is the person who divided Quran, the bigger surahs of the Quran into rukus. Why? Because you can't recite the whole of Surah Al-Baqarah in one rakat in the prayer. So there must be portions. So you can recite them in your prayers. So for that purpose, one ruku for every rakat. The root is the same. Raka'ah, ruku, rakat, and ruku. All these things what are? One rakat, you can recite one ruku. So that one subject is discussed in one ruku. So this was done later on, but it was not present in the days of the Prophet or of the companions. Radiyallahu ta'ala anhu. In the same way, then the whole of the Quran was divided into 30 parts, which we call paras and parts in Quran. This division also was done later on, and we don't know when it was done. But it definitely was not present in the days of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam or of the companions. This was to facilitate the Muslims so that every Muslim can read and recite one para, one part of the Quran every day, so that each month he completes one recitation of the whole of the Quran. But these two words, these two terms, rukus and paras or parts, they were introduced later on. They were not present during the days of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam or of the companions radiyallahu ta'ala anhum ajma'in.